What if, just days before your wedding, a simple phone notification revealed that the love of your life had triplets and never told you? Prepare for a story of choices, forgiveness, and an unexpected chance to start over. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post every day. Continuing. The fine November rain tapped against the 30th floor windows of the commercial building in Canary Wharf, London, creating a mesmerizing rhythm that contrasted with the tension in the meeting room. Raphael Carter adjusted the cuff of his Italian shirt and checked the graphs projected on the wall once more. The numbers were impressive. His solar energy company had grown 300% in the last 2 years, consolidating its position as a leader in the British market and attracting the attention of international investors. At 35, Raphael had everything he had ever planned: a prosperous company, a penthouse apartment in Kensington, imported cars, a robust bank account, and in 4 days, he would marry Isabel Marlowe, a marketing executive from one of the country's largest agencies. The wedding would be at the Savoy Hotel with 300 guests, social media coverage, and a honeymoon in the Maldives. Everything perfectly calculated, just the way he liked it. As he explained the projections for the next quarter to the German investors, Raphael felt that familiar sensation of absolute control. Every word, every gesture, every breath was under his command. He had learned early on that success came from discipline, the ability to plan every move, and never letting emotions interfere with business or with life. It was in this moment of absolute concentration that his phone, forgotten on the table, lit up with a WhatsApp notification. Raphael tried to ignore it, but something in the screen's reflection caught his eye. It was an image in a group he didn't recognize. Baby's first month. Frowning, he discreetly turned the device towards himself. What he saw made the air escape his lungs. In the photo, a woman smiled tiredly, sitting in a hospital chair, holding 3 tiny babies in her arms. Even with messy hair and no makeup, he recognized her immediately. It was Camilla Sinclair, his ex-wife. And those babies, they had the same brown eyes that stared back at him in the mirror every morning. The world around him seemed to slow down. The investors' voices became a distant murmur. The numbers on the wall lost focus, and Raphael felt as if he was falling into an endless abyss. Camilla. After 2 years of no contact, there she was, holding 3 children who could very well be his. "Mr. Carter," the German investor's voice brought him back to reality. "You were explaining about the expansion to the northeast?" Raphael blinked several times, trying to regain his composure. "My apologies. A personal emergency." His voice came out hoarser than he intended. With mechanical movements, he closed his laptop and stood up. "I'll have to reschedule this meeting." His partner and best friend, Brandon Harris, looked at him with concern. "Raphael, what's going on? This meeting is crucial for—" "Reschedule it." Raphael was already walking towards the door, ignoring the confused glances of the foreigners and the alarmed expression of his assistant, who was trying to understand why the most controlled man she knew had just abandoned the most important presentation of the year. In the elevator, Raphael's hands trembled as he held his phone. He zoomed in on the photo, studying every detail of the babies' tiny faces, the shape of their eyes, the way their hair grew on their foreheads, even the expression of one of them, who seemed annoyed with the whole world. Everything about them screamed familiarity. Camilla. How many times had he tried to erase that woman from his memory? How many nights had he spent awake, remembering her perfume? The way she laughed when they watched silly movies on the sofa, how angry she got when he came home late from work. They had been married for 3 years, and she had been the only true love of his life. But she had also been his greatest source of conflict. She dreamed of a big family with children running around the house, with weekend barbecues and holiday trips. Raphael dreamed of an IPO on the stock exchange, international expansion, and recognition in Forbes. When she started pushing for children, he always found an excuse. The company wasn't stable yet, the market was volatile, they needed more financial security. The truth was, Raphael saw children as unpredictable variables in an equation he had been working for years to balance. The separation was inevitable. There were no shouts, no broken plates, just a heavy silence that grew between them until one day, she packed her bags and moved to her sister Marianne's house in Brighton. The divorce was quick and civilized. She didn't ask for alimony, didn't fight over asset division. She simply disappeared from his life like a dream he decided to forget. And now that photo. Raphael left the office without speaking to anyone and went straight home. In his penthouse apartment, with a panoramic view of the city, he paced back and forth, trying to organize his thoughts. Isabel called 3 times. He didn't answer. He opened his laptop and began searching for flights to Brighton. His rational mind tried to argue that perhaps it was all a misunderstanding, that those babies could be someone else's, that Camilla might have remarried. But his heart hammered with a certainty he didn't want to admit. He remembered their last argument 3 days before she left. Camilla was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he arrived home from work at 11 at night. She didn't even turn to greet him. "Dinner's in the fridge," she said emotionlessly. "It was an important meeting. The Schmidt Group is interested in buying us." "That's good." Still not looking at him, Raphael approached, tried to touch her, but she pulled away. "Camilla, what's wrong?" "I went to the doctor today." His heart raced. "Is everything okay? Are you sick?" Finally, she turned, and there was something different in her eyes, a mix of hope and despair. "I'm not sick, Raphael. I've been trying to get pregnant for 6 months." The sensation was like being punched in the stomach. "What do you mean, trying? I thought you were still on birth control." "I stopped 6 months ago. I thought you'd notice, that you'd ask, that you'd care." Tears streamed down her face. "The doctor said everything's normal. With me. The problem must be with you. Or with us." Raphael felt his world collapse. "Camilla, we talked about this. It's not the right time yet for—" "When will it be the right time, Raphael?" she yelled for the first time in months. "When you make 100 million? 200? When you're the richest man in Britain? When I'm too old to be a mother? I just want us to have stability. We have stability. You have 3 cars, an apartment that costs more than most people earn in a lifetime, a company that grows every month. What more do you need to feel secure?" Raphael didn't know how to answer. The truth was, he didn't know if he would ever feel secure enough. The idea of having children terrified him in a way he couldn't explain. What if he failed? What if he didn't know how to be a father? What if the children prevented him from achieving his goals? "I need more time," was all he could manage to say. Camilla looked at him with profound sadness. "And I need a husband who wants to build a life with me, a real one, not just a company." 3 days later, she was gone. Now, looking at the photo on his phone, Raphael wondered if she had discovered the pregnancy soon after the separation. If she had been alone, scared, not knowing what to do. If she had tried to contact him, and he, immersed in business and building his new life with Isabel, hadn't noticed. Or if she had decided he didn't deserve to know. The phone rang. Isabel. "Darling, where are you? I'm at the salon for my final hair test, and you just disappeared from the office. Brandon said you had an emergency." "What happened?" Raphael looked out the window. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray. "Isabel, I need to travel." "Travel?" "Raphael, the wedding is in 4 days. We have the rehearsal dinner tomorrow, the ring fitting on Monday, the ceremony on Thursday. What kind of emergency would make you travel now?" "It's personal." "Personal how? Did someone die?" Is someone sick? Raphael closed his eyes. Someone was born. There was silence on the other end of the line. Isabel wasn't stupid. She knew about Camilla, though they rarely spoke about the subject. She knew Raphael had been married. Before, knew the marriage had ended without much explanation. And though she would never admit it, she knew there were photos of Camilla tucked away in a drawer in his office. Raphael. Her voice was tense now. You're scaring me. What are you talking about? I need to go to Brighton, now. Why? Raphael opened his mouth to answer but couldn't find the words. How to explain that he had just discovered he might be a father? How to explain that his entire life had just been turned upside down by a WhatsApp photo? I'll explain when I get back. When you get back? Raphael, you're canceling all our wedding commitments to go after your ex-wife? The clarity in her voice surprised him. Isabel had always been intelligent, always knew how to read between the lines. It's not what you're thinking. Then tell me what it is. Raphael took a deep breath. There was no hiding it. I received a photo of 3 babies, and I think they might be my children. The silence on the other end was deafening. Isabel? I'm here. Her voice was strange, too controlled. So you're telling me that a few days before our wedding, you discovered your ex-wife had your children? I don't know if they're mine. I need to find out. And if they are? Raphael didn't answer because he didn't know the answer. Raphael, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Do you still love her? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Raphael looked again at the photo on his phone. Camilla looked exhausted, but there was something in her smile that he recognized. The same expression she had when she managed to do something that made her proud. Like when she finished university, or when she got her first job, or when he proposed to her. Raphael? I don't know, he finally said. I thought I didn't, but seeing this photo, you don't know. She repeated the words as if testing how they sounded. 3 days before our wedding, you don't know if you still love your ex-wife. Isabel, No. Her voice was firm now. Don't say anything. Go to Brighton. Find out if these babies are yours. And when you know, call me. Because I'm not going to marry a man who isn't sure where his heart is. The call ended. Raphael stood in the middle of the room, holding the phone. In 15 minutes, his life had completely shattered. The most important meeting of his professional career, the wedding he had meticulously planned, the emotional stability he had carefully built. Everything had crumbled because of a photo sent by mistake. But as he packed some clothes into a suitcase, Raphael felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. An anxiety mixed with anticipation, a flutter in his stomach that had nothing to do with fear, but with the possibility that his life was about to change in a way he never imagined. 3 hours later, he was at London City Airport, waiting for the flight to Brighton. The cloudy weather delayed takeoff, but Raphael didn't care. He used the hours to try to process what was happening. If those babies were indeed his children, it meant Camilla had gone through the pregnancy alone. 3 babies. Twins. He didn't even know if the correct term was triplets, or if there was another term. He knew nothing about babies, in fact. He always thought he would have time to learn when the time came. Perhaps the time had come without him realizing it. During the flight, Raphael studied the photo dozens of times. The babies looked tiny, fragile. One of them had its eyes closed, another looked directly at the camera with an expression that reminded him of himself as a child. The third was yawning. And Camilla, even tired, she radiated a joy he hadn't seen in years. In the last months of their marriage, she always seemed sad, distant. Now, holding those children, she seemed complete. When the plane landed in Brighton, it was already night. Raphael rented a car and drove through the familiar streets towards the neighborhood where Marianne, Camilla's sister, lived. He wasn't sure if she was still there, but it was the only place he knew. The house was simple, in a middle-class neighborhood with a small front garden. There was a light in the living room. Raphael parked across the street and watched for a few minutes, trying to gather courage. What was he going to say? "Hi, Camilla. I saw a photo of you with 3 babies on WhatsApp, and I came here to find out if they're my children." It sounded absurd even to him. Finally, he crossed the street and rang the doorbell. Marianne opened the door, and her face immediately hardened. "Raphael." "Hi, Marianne, Can I come in?" "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Camilla." Marianne crossed her arms. "She doesn't want to talk to you." "It's about the babies." Her expression changed, a mix of surprise and concern. "How did you know about the babies?" "I received a photo by mistake." "Marianne, please, I just want to talk." Marianne studied him for a few seconds, then sighed. "Wait here." She closed the door, and Raphael stood on the porch, listening to muffled voices inside. An argument. Then footsteps. The door opened again, and there she was. Camilla looked different. Thinner, her hair longer, small lines around her eyes that weren't there before. She wore a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, nothing like the elegant clothes she used to wear when they were married. But her eyes were exactly as he remembered. "Hi," he said, and his voice came out as a whisper. "Hi." She made no move to let him in. "What are you doing here, Raphael?" "I received a photo. 3 babies, and they look like me." Camilla closed her eyes for a moment. "How did you get that photo?" "It was sent by mistake in a WhatsApp group." "Damn it! The nurse must have added me to the wrong group." She took a deep breath. "How much time do you have?" "What do you mean?" "Until you go back to London. Until you marry the beautiful executive." Raphael felt as if she had slapped him. "How do you know about Isabel?" "Social media. It's not hard to follow other people's lives these days." There was a bitterness in her voice he hadn't expected. "Camilla, these babies, are they mine?" She looked him in the eyes for a long moment. "Come in." Marianne's living room was cozy, with colorful sofas and plants everywhere. Raphael felt out of place there, in his expensive suit and Italian shoes. "Marianne took the children to her room to sleep," Camilla said, sitting on the sofa. "They're still very small. They make a lot of noise." "How old?" 2.5 months. Raphael did the mental math. 9 months before was February, the month she had left. "They're mine." "Yes." The confirmation hit him like lightning. He sat heavily in the armchair opposite her, trying to process the information. "Why didn't you tell me?" Camilla laughed, but there was no humor in the laugh. "Tell you? Raphael, you made it very clear you didn't want children. You said they would disrupt your plans, that you weren't ready, that you needed more time. I discovered the pregnancy 3 weeks after the divorce. Alone, scared, with no idea what to do. You should have called me." "To hear what? That you weren't prepared to be a father? That I should wait until your company made a few more millions?" Her eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall. "Or perhaps you would suggest I resolved the situation." Raphael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "I would never suggest that." "No? Are you sure?" He wasn't sure, and they both knew it. "When did you find out there were 3? "At the first ultrasound. 8th week." Camilla smiled for the first time since he arrived, a melancholic smile. "The doctor kept looking at the monitor and called another doctor, then a third. I thought something was wrong. Then they told me, 'Congratulations, you're having triplets,' and you were happy." "Terrified. Like any normal person would be." She leaned forward. Raphael, do you know what a triplet pregnancy is? How many risks are involved? How much it costs? I worked as a freelance writer, earned little, lived at my sister's house. The last thing I needed was 3 babies at the same time. But you were happy, he insisted, because he had seen the joy in the photo. Yes, I was happy, because despite everything, despite the fear and the difficulty, I knew I was going to love these children, and that they would love me back, unconditionally, without strategic plans, without waiting for the perfect moment. The words were like daggers. Raphael knew she was right. His love had always been conditional, conditioned on success, on control, on perfect planning. I want to see them. Camilla studied him for a moment. Why? Because they're my children. Are they? 2 minutes ago you didn't even know they existed. But now I do, and I want to meet them. And then what? You'll go back to London, marry your executive, and pretend they don't exist. You'll send a check every month and feel good about your conscience. Raphael didn't answer because he didn't know what the answer was. Camilla stood up. They're sleeping. Tomorrow you can see them. But Raphael, she turned to him at the door. If you enter their lives, you can't leave. They won't understand why their father appeared and then disappeared. I won't disappear. How can I be sure? Because... Raphael stopped. How could he be sure of anything if he didn't even know what he was going to do? Sleep on it, Camilla said, and tomorrow tell me if you really want to be a father or if you just want to satisfy your curiosity. She went upstairs, leaving Raphael alone in the living room. He stood there for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the house. Footsteps upstairs, water running, a TV playing softly. Sounds of a family, something he had always avoided. Outside, Raphael sat in the rented car and called Isabel. She answered on the first ring. So? They're mine. Silence. Isabel? How many? 3. Triplets. 3 children, she repeated as if testing how the words sounded. You have 3 children with your ex-wife. Yes. And now? I don't know. You don't know. Again, she repeated his words. Raphael, I'm going to ask you one more question. Where are you right now? In the driveway of the house where she lives. And where do you want to be? Raphael looked at the lit window on the 2nd floor. He could see Camilla's silhouette moving, probably getting ready for bed. Somewhere in that house were his 3 children. I don't know, he lied. Yes, you do. You always knew. I was just fooling myself into thinking I could make you love me the way you love her. Isabel. No, Raphael, it's okay. In fact, it's better this way. You're doing us both a favor. I deserve someone who is sure they want to be with me. What about the wedding? I'll handle the cancellations. Say it was my request. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because unlike you, I know what I want. And I don't want a husband who is here with me, but with his heart somewhere else. The call ended, and Raphael found himself alone again. 3 days before his wedding, he had lost his fiancée, almost ruined his career, and discovered he had 3 children. And for the first time in years, he had no idea what his next step would be. As he drove to the hotel, Raphael thought of Camilla's expression when he asked if she had been happy about the pregnancy. There was something in the way she smiled that haunted him. It was the same smile she had when she talked about the children she wanted to have, about the family she wanted to form. The same smile he had destroyed with his obsession with control and planning. Now, lying in an anonymous hotel room in Brighton, Raphael wondered if it was too late to recover what he had lost, or if he was about to discover that he had never been ready for the life that truly mattered. But one thing he knew for sure. Tomorrow, when he saw his children for the first time, his life would change forever. And for the first time in his adult life, Raphael Carter had no idea how to plan for it. Raphael woke up at 5 in the morning, as he had for the past 10 years. The habit was stronger than the circumstances, even though he was in a hotel room in a different city, dealing with the discovery that had turned his life upside down. But when he opened his eyes and saw the unfamiliar ceiling, reality hit him like an avalanche. He had 3 children he didn't know, a fiancée who had ended their engagement, and a company that was probably in crisis after he had abandoned the most important meeting of the year. He picked up his phone. 43 unread messages. Brandon had called 8 times. His assistant sent 17 messages asking what to tell the investors. Isabel had sent only one message. "I spoke to the wedding planner. Everything is canceled. Good luck." Raphael stared at the message for several minutes. 3 simple words that ended a 2-year relationship and lifelong plans. For some reason, he didn't feel as devastated as he should have. He felt relieved, confused, perhaps both. He got up, showered, and put on the only casual clothes he had brought, jeans and a navy blue polo shirt. Looking at himself in the mirror, Raphael felt strange. How long had it been since he wore jeans? How long had it been since he woke up without a rigid schedule of meetings and appointments? He drove to Mary Ann's house, but upon arriving he hesitated. It was only 7 in the morning, too early for visits, especially with newborns, but also too early to go back to the hotel and ruminate on the situation. So he decided to take a walk around the city. Brighton was slowly waking up. Newspaper vendors on street corners, bakeries with the aroma of fresh bread, people jogging along the promenade. Raphael parked near the pier and started walking. There was something in the simplicity of the scene that calmed him. In London, his mornings were a race against time. Gym at 5:30, quick shower, breakfast while checking emails, stressful commute to the office. Here, people seemed to have time to exist. He stopped at a bakery and ordered a coffee with milk and a toasted crumpet. The attendant, a woman in her 60s, smiled when he paid. Tourist, more or less. Raphael wasn't sure how to classify himself. "I'm visiting family." "That's lovely. Family is everything in life, isn't it, dear? We lose money, we change jobs, but family?" She shook her head. "Family is forever." The words echoed in Raphael's head as he walked back to the car. Family is forever. He had always seen family as another responsibility, another thing to manage and plan. But what if it was the opposite? What if family was the only thing that truly mattered? At 9 o'clock, he finally rang Mary Ann's doorbell. Camilla opened the door, and Raphael was surprised by her appearance. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was messy, and she was wearing clothes that clearly had milk stains or something similar. "Hi," she said without much enthusiasm. "You're early." "I didn't sleep well. Can I come in?" Camilla hesitated, then made space for him to pass. The house was in organized chaos. There was a baby seat in the living room, clean nappies folded in a basket, bottles sterilizing in the kitchen, and crying coming from somewhere. "Sorry about the mess," Camilla said, running a hand through her hair. "One of them woke up at 5 and woke the other 2. Mary Ann left early for work, so I'm alone with them." Raphael stood in the middle of the room, not knowing what to do. Do you want help?" Camilla looked at him as if he had suggested something absurd. "Help? With what? Do you know how to change a nappy? Do you know how to make a bottle? Do you know the difference between a hunger cry and a colic cry?" "No." "Then sit down and wait." She went upstairs, and Raphael was left alone in the living room, listening to the babies crying upstairs, mixed with Camilla's voice trying to calm them. After a few minutes, the crying stopped. Camilla came downstairs carrying a tiny baby in her arms, cradling him gently. Raphael felt the air escape his lungs. The child was perfect. Small, fragile, but perfect. And he was sleeping with a serene expression that made Raphael smile involuntarily. "This is Michael." Camilla said softly. He's the youngest of the three, born 2 minutes after Helen. And the third? Gabriel. He's the most restless. Born first and since then thinks he's the boss of the others. There was tenderness in her voice, a softness Raphael hadn't heard in years. Do you want to hold him? Raphael nodded, but when he extended his arms, he hesitated. What if I do something wrong? You will. Camilla approached and carefully transferred Michael to his arms. Everyone does. The trick is not to freak out when it happens. The weight of the child in Raphael's arms was an indescribable experience. Michael was so small, so fragile, but at the same time so real, so present. Raphael could feel the tiny heart beating against his chest, could see the small expressions that passed over the baby's face as he dreamed. He's just like you when he sleeps, Camilla said softly. His forehead wrinkles, as if he's solving problems even in his dreams. Raphael chuckled softly. And the other two? Did they take after me too? Helen has your eyes, but her temper is all mine, stubborn since birth. Camilla sat on the sofa next to him. Gabriel is a mix of both. He has your determination, but also my impulsiveness. They sat in silence for a few minutes, just watching Michael sleep. Raphael felt overwhelmed by a wave of emotions he couldn't name. Tenderness, responsibility, fear, love. Yes, love. It was impossible not to love that helpless creature who carried half of his genes and fit so perfectly in his arms. Camilla, he said finally, I'm so sorry. For what? For everything. For not being here. For being an idiot about having children. For letting you go through this alone. Camilla was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what the hardest part was? The pregnancy? No. The pregnancy was scary, but I knew I had Marianne, I had other relatives, I had a good doctor. The hardest part was imagining what it would be like to tell them about their father when they grew up. She looked at Michael in his arms. What was I going to say? That their father was a man who loved success more than his own family? That he preferred work to being present in the most important moments? Raphael felt as if she had opened a deep wound. And now? What are you going to tell them? I don't know. It depends on you. What do you mean? Camilla turned to look him in the eyes. Raphael, you showed up here yesterday because you saw a photo by chance. But what if you hadn't seen it? If that photo hadn't reached you by mistake? You would have gone your entire life without knowing you had children. And I would have let you. Her brutal honesty left him speechless. So now you need to decide, Camilla continued. Do you want to be a father because you truly want to? Or because you feel obligated now that you know? Because if it's an obligation, you'd better leave now. They'll grow up just fine without you. Just as I grew up just fine without my father. Raphael didn't know Camilla's father had been absent. In their 3 years of marriage, she rarely spoke about him. Your father didn't want children either? My father wanted children. He just didn't want the responsibility that came with them. Camilla picked up a clean nappy from the basket and began folding it, more to keep her hands busy than out of necessity. He would show up when he wanted, when it was convenient. He'd bring presents, promise outings that never happened, say he loved me, and then disappear for months. For a child, that's worse than not having a father at all. I wouldn't be like that. How can I be sure? Yesterday you were 4 days away from marrying another woman. Your life is in London, your company, your business, your career, and we are here, in Brighton, unable to move to London, and no reason for you to move here. Raphael looked at Michael, who had woken up and was staring at him with those big, curious eyes. What if I wanted to move here? Camilla stopped folding nappies. What do you mean? What if I wanted to stay, at least for a while, to get to know you all, to learn to be a father. Raphael, you have a company to run. You can't just abandon everything because of an impulsive discovery. It wouldn't be impulsive if it was the right decision. Camilla studied him carefully. And you think it would be the right decision? Raphael didn't answer immediately. He looked around the simple but welcoming living room. He thought of his penthouse apartment in London, with its panoramic view and designer furniture, but empty of real life. He thought of his rushed mornings, his endless meetings, his business dinners in expensive restaurants where he pretended to care about people who only cared about money. I don't know, he finally said, but I want to find out. A cry from upstairs interrupted them. Camilla sighed. Helen woke up, and when she wakes up, Gabriel isn't far behind. Can I come with you to meet them? Camilla hesitated, then nodded. Come on. But if you're going to freak out about the noise, I'd rather you freak out now than later. They went up to the room Marianne had turned into a makeshift nursery. There were 3 small cots in a row, a chest of drawers full of tiny clothes, and a nursing chair in the corner. The crying was coming from the middle cot, where a tiny baby girl was kicking indignantly. This is Helen, Camilla said, picking the girl up. A temperamental princess, wants constant attention. Raphael approached the 3rd cot, where another baby was starting to stir, apparently bothered by his sister's crying. And this is Gabriel? Yes. He's the protector. Always gets agitated when the others cry. Raphael extended his finger, and Gabriel grabbed it with surprising strength for such a small baby. He's strong. They all are. They had to be. Camilla was changing Helen with practical, efficient movements. They were born at 34 weeks. They spent almost a month in the neonatal ICU. The information hit Raphael like a punch. Neonatal ICU? Were there complications? Multiple births always have risks. Helen and Michael were born underweight. Gabriel had some respiratory problems in the first few days. Camilla spoke in a controlled voice, but Raphael could sense the pain behind the words. Those were the worst weeks of my life. Not knowing if they would be okay. Not knowing if I could take care of 3 premature babies alone. Raphael felt devastated. While he was focused on spreadsheets and profit projections, she had gone through the most terrifying experience of her life completely alone. Camilla, No. She interrupted him, but without anger. Don't say you're sorry. It doesn't help anymore. What matters is what happens from now on. Gabriel had started crying too, and Raphael, without thinking, picked him up. The movement was instinctive, natural, as if he knew exactly what to do. The baby immediately calmed down, staring at him with curiosity. He likes you, Camilla observed, apparently surprised. How do you know? Because he's very selective. He cried for 2 weeks every time Marianne tried to pick him up. With me and the hospital nurse, he's fine. With other people. She shook her head. You're lucky. Raphael looked at Gabriel, who had put his tiny hand on his chest as if listening to his heart. Hi, son, he whispered, and felt his eyes sting with unexpected tears. Raphael? It's strange. He couldn't take his eyes off Gabriel. I thought it would be complicated, that I wouldn't know how to feel. But looking at him, is it love at first sight? It's more than that. Raphael finally looked at Camilla. It's like a part of me that was missing has finally fallen into place. Camilla watched him in silence for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that Raphael couldn't decipher. Hope, distrust, fear. Are you serious about staying? I'm serious about trying. Raphael, this isn't a game. They're not an experiment. If you stay, if you become part of their lives, you can't change your mind later because it got difficult or because the novelty wore off. I know that. Do you really know? Do you know that having children means waking up 3 times a night for months? It means changing nappies, cleaning vomit, dealing with fever in the middle of the night. It means your life won't be about you anymore. Raphael looked at Gabriel, who had closed his eyes and seemed perfectly comfortable in his arms. I know I don't know anything about these things, but I want to learn. Why? Because you feel guilty? No. Because looking at him, at the three of you, I understand for the first time what truly matters. Camilla finished changing Helen and put her back in her cot. The girl grumbled a little, but quickly calmed down. And your company? Your business? All that was so important that you couldn't even think about having children? Raphael thought of the unread messages on his phone, the abandoned meeting, the German investors who probably thought he had gone crazy. Brandon can take care of the company for a while. He always wanted more responsibility anyway. What if he can't? What if your company goes bankrupt because of you? Then I'll build another one. The words came out of his mouth before he had time to think about them, but as soon as he said them, Raphael realized he was telling the truth. I can make money again. But this... He looked at Gabriel, then at Helen and Michael. This I can't get back if I lose it. Camilla approached him, and for a moment Raphael thought she was going to kiss him. Instead, she held out her arms. Give him back. To me. It's time for his bottle. Raphael hesitated before handing Gabriel over. He didn't want to stop holding him. He didn't want to break that moment of perfect connection. You can stay, Camilla said softly. If you want to, but it won't be like you imagine. How do you know what I imagine? Because I know you, Raphael. You think it's going to be like in the movies. That you'll arrive, be an amazing father instantly, and we'll be a happy family in a matter of weeks. She took Gabriel and headed for the stairs. But it won't be like that. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tiring, and you're going to want to give up many times. Downstairs, Camilla began preparing the bottles with mechanical, efficient movements. Raphael watched her, impressed by her naturalness amidst the chaos of caring for 3 babies. How did you learn all this? Trial and error, the internet, some friends who already had children, but mostly maternal instinct and desperation. She smiled for the first time that morning. You can't imagine how many times I cried with them in the first few weeks. And now? Now I still cry sometimes, especially when they cry at the same time and I don't know where to start. Camilla tested the milk temperature on the inside of her wrist. But I also laugh much more than I imagined. Every new thing they do, every smile, every time they stop crying because they recognize me, it's like my heart is going to burst with happiness. Raphael watched her feed Gabriel, the absolute concentration on her face, the tenderness in every movement. You're an amazing mother. No, I'm not. I'm still learning. I still make mistakes. I still feel lost most of the time. She looked at him. But I love them more than I thought it was possible to love anyone, and that makes it all worth it. Can I try? Feeding him a bottle? Raphael, are you sure? If you do it wrong, he'll... I want to try. Camilla hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but do exactly as I teach you. She spent the next few minutes teaching Raphael how to hold Gabriel, how to position the bottle, how to tell if the baby was drinking at the right speed. At first, Raphael was tense, worried about doing something wrong, but gradually he relaxed. He's enjoying it, Camilla observed. Look how he's looking at you. Raphael lowered his eyes and found Gabriel staring intently at him, his tiny hands holding the bottle with him. It was as if the baby was trying to understand who this man was, who was suddenly taking care of him. Hi, son, Raphael whispered. I'm your father. The words came out naturally, but as soon as he said them, Raphael felt their weight. He was a father. He had 3 children. His life had completely changed in less than 24 hours. Raphael? Hmm, there's something I need to tell you. Camilla's tone made Raphael look up from the bottle. She seemed nervous, as if preparing for a difficult confession. What is it? I tried to tell you. About the pregnancy. Raphael stopped rocking Gabriel. What do you mean? Right after I found out. I tried to call several times, but you never answered. I sent messages, you didn't reply. Then I went to your office. Raphael's heart raced. When? 3 months ago. You were in a meeting. Your assistant said you were too busy to see me. Raphael felt as if the ground had opened up beneath his feet. Eliza said that? She asked if it was urgent. I said it was personal. She said you only handled personal matters by appointment and that your schedule was closed for 2 weeks. Camilla was looking at her own hands. I sat in the reception for 3 hours waiting for you to finish your meeting. When you came out, you were with that woman, Isabel. Camilla, you both looked so happy together. She was laughing at something you'd said and you smiled in a way you never smiled with me. Not even when we were newly married. The tears she had held back all morning finally began to fall. Then I understood that you had moved on, that you had found someone who made you happy in a way I never could. Raphael felt devastated. Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Because you seemed so complete without me. And I thought, if I tell him about the babies now, he'll feel obligated. He'll cancel his plans with her. He'll come back to me out of obligation. Camilla wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I didn't want you to come, you. Back out of obligation, Raphael. I wanted you to come back because you loved me. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Gabriel sucking on his bottle. Raphael felt torn in half. Camilla had tried to do the right thing, but for all the wrong reasons. And he had been so immersed in his new life that he hadn't even noticed. I don't love Isabel, he finally said. No? Never did. She's a good person and we got along, but... Raphael looked at Camilla. It wasn't what I had with you. Then why were you going? To marry her? Because it was safe. Because she didn't haunt me like you haunted me. Because I could control my feelings for her. Raphael ran his free hand through his hair. Because I'm a coward who was afraid to fight for what I really wanted. Camilla was silent for a long moment. And what did you really want? Raphael looked at Gabriel in his arms, then at Helen sleeping in the car seat, then at Michael whom Camilla was holding. This, you all, a real family. But I was so afraid of failing that I chose not to try. And now? Now I want to try. If you'll let me. Camilla studied him carefully. Raphael, this isn't a fairy tale. It's not just going to be bottles and cute moments. There will be sleepless nights, sick babies, tight money, arguments about parenting. There will be days when you'll regret making this decision. I know. Do you really know? No. But I want to learn. Camilla sighed. Okay, you can stay, but on one condition. What is it? If you change your mind, if you decide this is too hard or not what you wanted, you tell me before you leave. Don't just disappear. She looked at the 3 babies. They deserve honesty, even if it hurts. I promise. And one more thing. You can't pretend this is temporary. If you stay for real. New house, new job, new life, no half measures. Raphael looked at Gabriel, who had finished his bottle and was now staring at him with those big, confident eyes. The idea of leaving his life in London behind should have terrified him. Instead, he felt as if he was finally waking up from a long, empty dream. Understood, Camilla nodded. Then welcome to parenthood, Raphael. I hope you're prepared for the adventure of your life. Outside, it started to rain again. But inside the house, Surrounded by the sounds of a true family, Raphael felt more at home than he had in years. And for the first time he could remember, he didn't want to be anywhere else. 3 weeks after arriving in Brighton, Raphael finally admitted to himself that he had no idea what he was doing. Sitting on Marianne's sofa at 4 in the morning, rocking Gabriel, who was crying inconsolably, he looked at Camilla trying to soothe Helen on the other sofa and wondered how two people could be so exhausted and yet functional. "Have you tried changing his nappy?" Camilla whispered, avoiding waking Michael, who was miraculously asleep in the car seat. "3 times. It's clean." "Hungry?" "He had a bottle an hour ago." "Colic?" Raphael made bicycle movements with Gabriel's tiny legs as Camilla had taught him. The baby continued crying, seemingly determined to wake the entire neighborhood. "Maybe he just wants to cry," Raphael said, trying not to sound as defeated as he felt. "Babies don't cry without a reason." "This one seems to." Camilla smiled, despite her tiredness. "Welcome to the club. Last week, Helen cried for 2 hours straight. When she finally stopped, a clothing tag was scratching her back." Raphael looked at Gabriel, checking if anything was bothering him. "How did you find out?" "Maternal instinct, I guess, or absolute desperation." She managed to calm Helen, who had finally stopped crying. "Sometimes they just need to feel that we're here, that they won't be abandoned." The words hit Raphael harder than they should have. In recent days, he had begun to understand that being a father was much more complex than he had imagined. It wasn't just about loving his children. That had been instant and absolute. It was about being present in difficult moments, about persisting when nothing worked, about being a safe haven even when he himself felt lost. Gabriel finally calmed down, more from exhaustion than from anything Raphael had done. Carefully, he placed his son in the cot and slumped down next to Camilla on the sofa. "How many hours did you sleep tonight?" 2, maybe 3. Camilla rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had become natural in recent weeks. "And you?" "Less than that." They sat in silence, listening to the baby's breathing. Raphael had discovered that some of the most precious moments of parenthood happened like this, in the silence after the storm, when the children finally slept and they could simply exist together. "Raphael." "Do you miss it?" "Miss what?" "Your life before. Your peaceful mornings, the meetings that made sense, always knowing what to do." Raphael thought about the question. 3 weeks ago, his life was predictable. He woke up at the same time, followed the same routine, solved problems he could solve with spreadsheets and logic. Now, his life was a constant chaos of nappies, bottles, inexplicable cries, and moments of pure happiness that appeared out of nowhere. "Sometimes," he admitted, "especially when it's 4 in the morning and I can't get Gabriel to stop crying. But then he looks at me or smiles or just falls asleep on my chest, and I understand that I never want to go back to that life." "Really? Even knowing you probably lost millions by canceling that meeting? That your company might be in crisis? That Brandon is probably covering everything up to protect you?" Raphael had only spoken to Brandon once since, arriving in Brighton. The conversation was tense. Brandon was incredulous at Raphael's decision to abandon everything for children he barely knew with a woman who had betrayed him by hiding the pregnancy. Raphael tried to explain, but realized Brandon couldn't understand. For him, family was something that should fit into professional life, not the other way around. "Brandon doesn't understand," Raphael said. "He thinks I'm having a midlife crisis." "And you're not?" Raphael turned to look at her. Camilla was staring at him with genuine curiosity, without judgment. "Do you think I am?" "I think you're discovering who you really are, and that's scary for everyone around you." "And for you?" Camilla hesitated. For me too, sometimes, because the Raphael I knew would never have abandoned an important meeting, never would have canceled a wedding, never would have moved to another city on impulse. Is that bad? I don't know yet. She straightened up to look at him better. Do you know what my fear is? What? That you're living a fantasy. That when reality truly hits, when the money runs out, when the babies get sick, when you realize you can't solve everything with your willpower, you'll leave. Raphael felt a tightening in his chest. What if I promise I won't leave? Promises are easy to make at 4 in the morning when we're tired and emotional. Then what do you want? A guarantee? A contract? I want trust. And that's built with time and actions, not with words. Raphael nodded. In recent days, he had realized that winning Camilla over again would be much harder than winning over the babies. Gabriel, Helen, and Michael had accepted him quickly, as if recognizing something in him that reassured them. Camilla was more cautious, always watching, always waiting for him to slip and reveal that he wasn't prepared for that life. Can I ask you a question? Of course. Why did you let me stay? Really? You could have sent me away, said it was too late. Camilla was silent for so long that Raphael thought she had fallen asleep. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and careful. Because they deserved to know their father, and because... She stopped. Because? Because I never stopped loving you, not for a second, even when I hated you, even when I swore I would move on, even when I saw... You happy with someone else? Tears streamed down her face. And I know it's foolish. I know you can leave at any moment. I know I'm risking getting hurt again, but I couldn't deny you, us, this chance. Raphael felt his heart break and rebuild at the same time. Camilla, don't say anything, please. Not now. Why? Because if you say you love me too, I'll believe it. And I'm not ready to believe it yet. Raphael wanted to protest, wanted to say he loved her more than anything, that he had been an idiot for letting her go, that he would never do anything to hurt her again. But he respected her request. Instead, he just took her hand and held it. They fell asleep like that, on the sofa, holding hands, with the 3 babies sleeping around them. When Raphael woke up, it was almost noon and there was an unknown man in the living room. Raphael? The voice was familiar, but he couldn't place it. He sat up quickly, trying to orient himself. Camilla was no longer on the sofa, and he could hear voices in the kitchen. Brandon? His best friend and partner stood in the living room doorway, observing the babies with an expression that mixed curiosity and disapproval. Brandon was a few years younger than Raphael, a confirmed bachelor, and had always seen serious relationships as dangerous distractions for ambitious men. In the flesh, Brandon approached, avoiding making noise. So these are the famous triplets. What are you doing here? Trying to understand why my partner disappeared off the face of the earth. Brandon pulled up a chair and sat opposite Raphael. Do you have any idea of the chaos you left behind? Raphael ran a hand through his hair. No, he didn't want to know. In recent weeks, he had deliberately avoided thinking about the office, the business, the consequences of his abrupt departure. Is it very serious? Extremely serious. The Germans were furious. They think we're amateurs. We managed to save the contract, but barely. 3 clients canceled projects, and the specialized press is speculating about internal problems in the company. Every word was like a stab. Raphael had taken 10 years to build his reputation in the market. In 3 weeks, he had destroyed almost everything. But that's not all, Brandon continued. The worst part is that investors are nervous. They think you're unstable. There are rumors that you have mental problems. Mental problems? Raphael, You abandoned the most important meeting of the year to chase after your pregnant ex-wife. You canceled a multi-million-pound wedding 3 days before the ceremony. You disappeared for 3 weeks. How do you think that looks to people who invested millions in your company? Raphael stood up and went to the window. Outside, he could see Camilla in the garden, hanging baby clothes on the line. Even doing such a simple task, she looked complete, happy. When they were married, she had never seemed completely happy. Maybe they're right, Raphael finally said. What do you mean? Maybe I really am unstable, or maybe I'm becoming sane for the first time in years. Brandon stood up too, clearly exasperated. Raphael, for God's sake, listen to what you're saying. You have a company worth tens of millions, a brilliant career, a whole life built in London. And you're considering throwing it all away for what? For 3 babies you barely know? They're my children. Are they? Are you sure? Did you do a DNA test? The question hit Raphael like a punch to the stomach. I don't need a DNA test. Of course you do. Raphael, you're a smart businessman. You've always been rational, always based your decisions on data, not emotions. How can you make such an important decision based only on intuition? Because some things can't be quantified. That's self-help talk. Camilla might be using you. She might have had these children with another man and seen an opportunity for financial stability in you. Raphael turned to face Brandon. Do you really believe that? I believe people do extreme things when they're desperate. And a single woman with 3 newborn babies is, by definition, desperate. Get out of here. Raphael, I said get out. Now. Brandon stared at him for a long moment. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, and when you realize it, it might be too late to fix it. It might be, but it's my choice. Brandon shook his head and headed for the door. I'll hold the company together as long as I can, but I can't work miracles alone. If you don't come back soon, there won't be a company to come back to. After Brandon left, Raphael stood in the living room, hearing only the baby's breathing. His friend's words echoed in his head. What if he was right? What if Raphael was making the biggest mistake of his life? What if this was just a romantic fantasy that would fall apart when reality hit? Who was that man? Raphael turned. Camilla was at the kitchen door with a worried expression. My partner, Brandon. He seemed annoyed. He was. Rightfully so, I think. Camilla approached. What did he want? For me to go back to London. The company is having problems because of my absence. Serious problems? Raphael hesitated. He didn't want to worry her, but he also didn't want to lie. Yes, very serious. Camilla sat on the sofa, suddenly looking very tired. I knew this would happen. Camilla. No, Raphael, I knew. You can't just abandon an entire life without consequences, and I shouldn't have let you do that. You didn't let me do anything. It was my choice. A choice you're regretting now. I'm not regretting it. Camilla looked at him with skepticism. Are you sure? Even knowing you might lose everything you've built? Even knowing your decisions are affecting other people? Raphael didn't answer immediately because he wasn't sure of the answer. Part of him was terrified of losing the company, of seeing years of work go down the drain. Another part of him knew that if he went back to London now, he would be losing something even more important. Do you know what your friend told me in the kitchen? What? That you should do a DNA test to make sure the children are yours. Raphael felt his blood run cold. He told you that? He did. And he also said that I was probably using you, that it was suspicious I hadn't told you about the pregnancy before. Camilla, he's not wrong, you know. What do you mean? About the DNA test. Maybe you should do it. Raphael stared at her, shocked. Why? You know they're my children. I know. But you need to be absolutely sure. Because if one day you have any doubt, if someone plants any suspicion in your head, it will destroy our family. I won't have doubts. Raphael, you just found out you might lose your company. Your entire life could fall apart because of a decision you made based on a photo. It's normal for you to start questioning everything. Raphael approached her. You want me to do the test because you have doubts about me. You think I'll use it as an excuse to leave. Camilla didn't deny it. Would you be capable? The question hung in the air between them. Raphael looked at the three cots, where Gabriel, Helen, and Michael slept peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. No, he finally said. Even if the test came back negative, even if they weren't biologically my children, I couldn't abandon them now. Why? Because I love them. Because the four of you are the only thing that makes sense in my life. Raphael knelt in front of the sofa where Camilla was sitting. I know my friend planted doubts in your head. I know you're afraid I'll choose the company over you. But I need you to understand one thing. There's no choice. Not for me. Not anymore. What if you lose everything? What if you're left without money, without a career, without anything? Then we'll start over. Together. Camilla studied him for a long moment. Are you willing to do the DNA test? If you want me to do it, I'll do it. I want to. Why? To prove to you that they're mine? No, to prove to you that it doesn't matter. Camilla touched his face. Because if you do the test and the result confirms they are your children, you'll know that your choice wasn't based on doubt or guilt. It was based on love. Raphael nodded. All right, let's do the test. And while we wait for the result, we continue living. We continue being a family, because that's what we are, regardless of what any exam says. That night, after the children finally fell asleep, Raphael and Camilla talked late into the night. They spoke about their fears, about external pressures, about the uncertainty of the future. And for the first time since Raphael arrived in Brighton, they spoke about the possibility of building something new together. You know what's funny? Camilla said, lying in the guest bed where Raphael slept. When we were married, I dreamed you would change, that you would prioritize family. Now that you've changed, I'm afraid it's too late. It's never too late. No, not if people still love each other. Camilla was silent for a moment. And do you love me? Camilla, I never stopped loving you. Not for a second. Even when I was with Isabel, even when I tried to convince myself I had moved on. And I love you too. Always have. But love isn't enough, Raphael, not without trust. Then give me a chance to rebuild that trust. I already am. By letting you stay here, by letting you get to know the children, by considering a future together. Raphael moved closer to her in bed. Can I kiss you? Raphael? One kiss. Just one. Camilla hesitated, then nodded. The kiss was soft, careful, full of all the words they couldn't say. When they broke apart, both had tears in their eyes. It wasn't just one kiss, Camilla whispered. No. It was a promise. It was. And what if you break that promise? Raphael looked her in the eyes. Then you'll never see me again. The following week, while waiting for the DNA test result, Raphael made a decision that surprised even himself. He called Brandon and offered to sell his share of the company. You've completely lost your mind, was Brandon's response. Maybe, but it's the only way to end the speculation and get rid of the pressure. If I don't come back, at least you can move forward without me. Raphael, think about what you're doing. It's your whole life. It was my whole life. Now I have a new life. When he told Camilla, she was silent for a long time. Are you sure? Absolutely. And you won't regret it? Raphael looked at Gabriel in his arms, then at Helen and Michael playing on the living room rug. Impossible. The test result arrived on a rainy Thursday. Raphael opened the envelope with trembling hands, even though he knew what the result would be. Positive. 99.9% probability of paternity. He showed the paper to Camilla, who simply smiled. Satisfied? Relieved. Not by the confirmation, but because now you can no longer doubt that I made the right choice. And I can stop being afraid that you'll change your mind. That night, they made love for the first time since Raphael arrived in Brighton. It was different from how it was when they were married. More intense, more desperate, as if they were trying to make up for all the lost time. And when they fell asleep in each other's arms, Raphael knew he had finally found his place in the world. But the next day, Brandon appeared again. This time, he wasn't alone. And he brought information that threatened to destroy everything Raphael and Camilla were building. The man Brandon brought with him looked like he had stepped straight out of a suspense film. Dark suit, mirrored sunglasses, a neutral expression that revealed absolutely nothing. He introduced himself as a private investigator hired by Brandon to clarify some questions about Raphael's situation. Questions? Raphael stood at Marianne's doorway, blocking the two men's entry. What kind of questions? May I come in? It's better if we talk privately. Raphael looked back. Camilla was in the living room with the babies, clearly tense since she saw Brandon arrive accompanied. No, speak right here. Brandon sighed. Raphael, you're being stubborn. It's for your own good. Since when is my good your concern, Brandon? The investigator stepped forward, taking a folder from his briefcase. Mr. Carter, my name is Charles Mendoza. I was hired by Mr. Harris to investigate the circumstances of Miss Camilla Sinclair's pregnancy. Raphael felt his blood run cold. You did what? Brandon approached. I needed to be sure, Raphael. You're throwing your life away based on what? Her word. Based on pure emotion. You didn't even ask the basic questions any sensible person would ask. Raphael looked at the investigator. And what questions would those be? Mendoza opened the folder. For example, where was Ms. Sinclair in the months leading up to your separation? Who was she involved with? How did she manage to cover the medical expenses of a high-risk pregnancy while being a freelancer? The medical expenses were covered by the NHS, Raphael said through gritted teeth. Partially. But Ms. Sinclair had private consultations, special exams, even hired a private doula for the birth. Mendoza took a sheet from the folder. All this costs money that she demonstrably did not have. Raphael felt the ground moving beneath his feet. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm presenting facts. Mendoza showed a series of photographs. These are photos of Ms. Sinclair at dinners with Mr. Mark Vickers, Chief Financial Officer of Southern Solar Energy, your main competitor in the Sussex market. The photos showed Camilla and an elegant middle-aged man in expensive restaurants, smiling, toasting. In one, the man had his hand on her shoulder. In another, they were leaving what appeared to be a hotel together. When were these photos taken? Between December and February of last year, a period that coincides exactly with your separation and the first months of her pregnancy. Raphael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. This doesn't prove anything. No? Then perhaps this will prove it. Mendoza took out another document. Bank transfers from Mark Vickers's personal account to Camilla Sinclair's account. 5 transfers of £10,000 each, made between January and May of this year. £50,000, an amount that Camilla definitively could not explain with her freelance work. Raphael, Camilla's voice, came from inside the house. Is everything okay? Raphael couldn't answer. He was staring fixedly at the documents, trying to process the information. There's more, Mendoza continued. Mr. Vickers is married. But there are rumors that he has maintained extramarital relationships for years. And there's something interesting about the timing of the transfers. What do you mean? The first transfer was made exactly 1 week after Ms. Sinclair tried to visit you in your office. The same visit she mentioned yesterday, when she said she tried to tell you about the pregnancy. Raphael's world completely collapsed. Camilla had gone to his office, couldn't speak to him, and a week later began receiving money from another man, a man who was his direct competitor in the market. That still doesn't prove she was having an affair with him, Raphael managed to say, though his voice sounded weak even to himself. No, but it proves she received money from him for undeclared reasons, and the dates are too convenient to be a coincidence. Brandon put a hand on Raphael's shoulder. Mate, I know it's hard to accept, but you need to consider the possibility that she's lying. About the babies being mine? The DNA test. The DNA test only proves you had intercourse. It doesn't prove when. She could have gotten pregnant by another man and lied about the dates. Raphael shook his head. That doesn't make sense. If she wanted to deceive me, why would she wait so long to tell me? Why didn't she come after me right at the beginning of the pregnancy? Because perhaps she first tried to get the money from the real father. When that didn't work out, she came after you. Mendoza put the documents back in the folder. Mr. Carter, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying there are questions that need answers. Raphael was silent for a long moment. He could hear Camilla singing softly to the babies inside, the same lullaby she sang every afternoon. He could hear Gabriel starting to cry and Helen laughing at something, sounds of a family he thought he had finally won. What do you want me to do? Confront her, Brandon said. Ask her about Mark Vickers, ask her about the money, and if she can't explain it satisfactorily, then you go back to London and rebuild your life. Raphael looked at the folder in the investigator's hand. Can I keep this? They're yours. I made copies of everything. After Brandon and the investigator left, Raphael sat in the car for almost an hour, looking at the documents. The photographs were undeniable. The bank transfers, too. But there was something that didn't fit. If Camilla was receiving money from Mark Vickers, why was she still living at her sister's house? Why didn't she have better living conditions? Why did she seem to be struggling so much to care for the babies? Finally, he went into the house. Camilla was in the kitchen, preparing the evening bottles. Raphael, you've been acting strange since those men left. What did they want? Raphael placed the folder on the kitchen table. To talk. Camilla looked at the folder with suspicion. About what? About you, and about a man named Mark Vickers. Camilla's reaction was immediate and telling. She paled, dropped the bottle she was preparing, and leaned against the counter. Raphael, I can explain. Then explain. Camilla took a deep breath. How did they know about Mark? They hired a private investigator. Camilla, were you receiving money from him? 50,000 pounds? Yes. The confirmation hit Raphael like a bullet. Even expecting it, even seeing the evidence, hearing it from her mouth was devastating. Why? Because I was desperate. Tears began to fall. Raphael, when I found out I was pregnant with triplets, I panicked. I had no money, no plans, no one. I tried to talk to you, but you were with your new life, your new fiancé. So you went after him. It wasn't like that. I met him in a coffee shop near the hospital where I was having my prenatal checkups. He was kind, asked if I was okay because I was crying. I ended up telling him the whole story. And he offered to help you financially. Not at the first meeting. We met a few times. He seemed interested in my situation, said he understood what it was like to be responsible for children alone. Raphael opened the folder and showed her the photos. Interested in your situation or in you? Camilla looked at the photographs with disgust. He was interested in me, yes, But I made it clear from the start that I wasn't looking for a relationship, that I just needed help. Help that cost 50,000 pounds. Raphael, I know how this looks, but it wasn't what you're thinking. Then tell me what it was. Camilla sat at the table, looking exhausted. Mark has been married for 20 years. He has 3 adult children. His wife can no longer have children, and he was obsessed with the idea of being a father again. When he learned of my situation, he offered an agreement. What kind of agreement? He would pay all the medical expenses and give me an amount to help me with the babies. In exchange? Camilla stopped. In exchange for what, Camilla? In exchange for the right to visit the children. To be a kind of borrowed grandfather. Raphael felt as if the floor had disappeared from under his feet. You sold access to my children? No. I never thought of the babies as your children. You had made it very clear you didn't want them. So you thought it best to give them to some stranger? He's not just any stranger. He's a family man, successful, who wanted to help. And you? What did you want from him besides the money? Camilla looked him in the eyes. Nothing, I swear, Raphael. There was never anything between us. The photos suggest otherwise. The photos show business dinners, meetings where we discussed the terms of the agreement. Raphael studied her face, looking for signs of a lie. Camilla was always terrible at lying. She would blush, stammer, avoid eye contact. Now she was looking directly at him, even with tears in her eyes. And where is he now? Why isn't he here visiting his borrowed grandchildren? Because when you showed up, I broke the agreement. What do you mean? I called him and told him the children's father had appeared, that the agreement was canceled. I returned the money I hadn't spent yet. How much? 22,000. I spent the rest on medical consultations, exams, medications, clothes for the babies. Raphael leaned against the wall, trying to process everything. And he accepted? No. He was furious, said we had an agreement, that he had invested in us, that I couldn't just cancel everything. Invested in you? That was the word he used, as if it were a business. Raphael felt a shiver. Camilla, do you realize how that sounds? A man pays 50,000 pounds to a pregnant woman in exchange for access to the children? That's not an innocent agreement. I know. That's why I broke it with him as soon as you appeared. What if I hadn't appeared? Camilla was silent for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe I would have kept the agreement. For the sake of the children. For the sake of the children, or because you needed the money? Both. Raphael, you have no idea what it's like to be pregnant, alone, without resources. When someone offers help, you can't be too demanding. Raphael sat in the chair opposite her. Why didn't you tell me this? Because I knew how you would react. I knew you would think the worst of me. And you were right. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Camilla began to cry more intensely. Raphael, I did what I thought was best at the time. I was desperate, alone, afraid. Did I make mistakes? Probably. But I never betrayed you, or did anything that could harm the children. How can I be sure? Because you know me. Even after everything that happened between us, you know who I am. Raphael wanted to believe her. Every fiber of his being wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation for everything. But the evidence was too compromising. Is there any way to prove you broke the agreement? Any document, message, record? I returned the money by bank transfer. There should be a bank record. When? The day after you showed up here. Raphael did the mental math. That matched what she was saying. If she had really returned the money as soon as he appeared, it was a point in her favor. Camilla, I need to see that bank statement. Why? You don't believe me? I want to believe you, but Brandon planted so many doubts in my head. Brandon hates you. Brandon protects me. Brandon controls you. Always has. And now that you're making your own decisions, he's desperate to bring you back. Raphael knew there was truth in that. Brandon had always been possessive of their friendship, always suspicious of anyone who might distract him from business. When Raphael married Camilla, Brandon had been against it from the start. Even if Brandon is manipulating me, that doesn't change the fact that you accepted money from another man. Not from another man. From someone who offered to help in a difficult situation. And you don't see anything wrong with that? Camilla got up from the table, visibly irritated. Wrong? Raphael, you abandoned me. You made it clear you didn't want children, didn't want responsibilities. When I found out I was pregnant, you were happy with someone else. What was I supposed to do? Starve? Skip the exams? Risk the baby's lives out of pride? You should have insisted on talking to me. Insisted how? You never answered my calls. Your assistant treated me like I was an inconvenient ex-girlfriend. And when I finally got to your office, you were with your fiancé, looking completely happy without me. Raphael remembered that day. Isabel had shown up at the office for lunch with him, and they had left laughing at some inside joke. If Camilla had seen that... Camilla, I was never completely happy with Isabel. You know that. No, I didn't know. I only saw a man who had moved on, who had found someone who made him smile in a way I never could. Raphael approached her. You always made me smile. The problem is I was so afraid of losing control that I didn't let it show. And now? Are you still afraid of losing control? Terrified. But I'm also terrified of losing you all. Camilla looked him in the eyes. Then you need to choose what you'll believe. The evidence Brandon collected to convince you I'm a gold digger, or the woman you say you love. Raphael was silent for a long moment. From upstairs came the sound of one of the babies starting to cry, probably Gabriel, who always woke first from his afternoon naps. I'll go get the bank statement, Camilla said, heading for the stairs. And you'll decide if that's enough for you or if you prefer to believe your friends' theories. Raphael was left alone in the kitchen, looking at the photographs scattered on the table. Camilla and Mark Vickers in restaurants, smiling, talking. In one, he was clearly interested, the way he leaned close to her, the way he looked at her. But looking more closely, Raphael noticed that Camilla always maintained a respectful distance, her arms crossed in some photos, her smile polite but not warm. When she came down with Gabriel in her arms and the statements in her hand, Raphael had already made his decision. You don't need to show me. What do you mean? I believe you. Camilla stopped halfway down the stairs. Why? Without even seeing the evidence? Because you're right. I know you. And the Camilla I know may have made a questionable choice out of desperation, but she would never do anything to harm our children. Our children? Yes. Ours. Raphael went up a few steps to be closer to her. Camilla, I don't care about Mark's money. I don't care about the dinners or the photos. What I care about is that you were alone and scared, and I wasn't here to help you. Raphael, and I also care that you broke it off with him as soon as I appeared. That tells me everything I need to know about where your priorities lie. Camilla came down the rest of the stairs and approached him. Gabriel was sleeping again, apparently soothed by his parents' proximity. What about Brandon and the doubts he planted? Brandon will have to accept my decision. And if he doesn't accept it... Raphael took a deep breath. Then maybe it's time to find out if our friendship is stronger than his desire to control me. Are you sure? Absolutely. Camilla smiled for the first time since the conversation began. And Mark? What if he shows up here demanding his rights? Then I'll talk to him. Make it clear that you are all under my protection now. Our protection, Camilla corrected. We're a team, remember? Raphael smiled, too. Our protection. They were interrupted by the doorbell. Raphael felt his stomach clench. Would it be Brandon back? Or worse, would it be Mark Vickers himself? Camilla looked out the window. It's a man I don't know. Raphael approached. Outside stood a middle-aged man, well-dressed, with the air of someone not used to being contradicted. He didn't need introductions to know who it was. It's him, Mark. What do we do? I'll talk to him. You stay with the children. Raphael opened the door before the man could ring the doorbell again. Mark Vickers was exactly as Raphael had imagined, confident, successful, with that air of superiority that rich men often have. You must be Raphael, Mark said, extending his hand. I'm Mark Vickers. We need to talk. Raphael didn't shake the extended hand. About what? About Camilla, and about the children. They are none of your concern. Mark smiled, but there was no warmth in the smile. Oh, but they are. I invested £50,000 in this family. That gives me certain rights. You invested in what, exactly? Because from what I understand, Camilla returned your money. She returned part of it, but that doesn't cancel our agreement. What agreement? There's nothing in writing, nothing legal. You gave money to a pregnant woman, and now you want what in return? Mark stepped closer. I want what was promised. Access to the children. The right to visit them. Then you're in the wrong place. The children have a father. A father who abandoned them for the entire pregnancy. Raphael felt anger rising, but controlled himself. A father who didn't know of their existence, but who is here now. And for how long? Until you get tired of playing family? Forever. Mark laughed. Raphael, may I call you Raphael? I know who you are. I know about your company, your career, the wedding you canceled to come running after her. Do you think this is sustainable? Do you think you can live happily ever after in a middle-class house in Brighton? I think that's none of your business. It is my business because I invested in this situation. Camilla was alone, helpless. I offered stability. And now you show up like a knight-errant and want to ruin everything? Stability? Or did you want to buy access to someone else's children? Mark turned red. Be careful with your accusations, young man. Or what? What are you going to do? I'll fight for my rights. In court, if necessary. Raphael laughed, but there was no humor in the laugh. Rights? What rights? You have no legal relationship with these children. I have bank records proving my financial support during the pregnancy. I have witnesses to our meetings. And I have a good lawyer. And I have a DNA test that proves I am the biological father. An absent biological father. A present biological father now. And I intend to remain present. Mark studied him for a moment. You'll regret it. When the novelty wears off, when you realize that being a father isn't the romantic adventure you imagine, you'll leave. And when that happens, I'll be here. No, you won't. Because if you approach my family again, I'll make your life a living hell. Your family? What family? A rich playboy playing father and a woman who accepts money from strangers? Raphael took a step forward, and Mark instinctively recoiled. Careful. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Get out of here and don't come back. Mark stared at him for a few more seconds, then smiled again. We'll see. He turned and walked back to a black BMW parked on the street. Raphael watched until the car disappeared from view, then closed the door. Raphael? Camilla was at the top of the stairs, looking worried. Is everything okay? It is. He left. But will he come back? He can try, but he won't get anywhere. Camilla came down the stairs. How can you be so sure? Because he has no legal right to the children, and because now they have a father who will protect them. What if he really goes to court? Raphael hugged her. Then we'll go to court too. with a DNA test, birth certificates, and everything else necessary to prove we are a legitimate family. Even if that means a long and expensive battle? Especially for that. Camilla, I won't let anyone threaten our family. Not Brandon, not Mark, not anyone. That night, after the babies were asleep, Raphael and Camilla talked about the future, about the challenges that were still to come, about external pressures, about the need to become a stronger team. You know what I realized today? Raphael said, lying beside her in bed. What? That all the crises we've faced so far have only brought us closer. Brandon trying to convince me you were deceiving me. The investigator with his evidence. Mark showing up to claim non-existent rights. And you think that's good? I think they're tests. The universe testing if our decision to stay together is solid. And is it? More solid every day. Camilla snuggled against him. Raphael? Thank you for believing in me, even with all the evidence against me. Thank you for giving me a second chance, even after everything I did wrong. Do you think we'll make it? Make what? Be a real family, overcome all the difficulties, build something solid together. Raphael kissed her on the forehead. I'm absolutely sure. How can you be sure? Because for the first time in my life, I want something more than I want to be successful. And that changes everything. The next morning, Raphael made the final decision about his company. He called Brandon and confirmed the sale of his share. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, was Brandon's response. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. And then what? What are you going to do here in Brighton? Live off what? Raphael looked out the window. Camilla was in the garden with the 3 babies, singing to them as they basked in the morning sun. The scene was so perfect it hurt his chest. I'm going to start over. Open a company here. Something smaller, more sustainable. With what money? With the money from selling my share of the company. Brandon was silent for a moment. Raphael, are you sure about this? Absolutely sure? I've never been so sure of anything in my life. Then good luck. You'll need it. After hanging up, Raphael joined his family in the garden. Gabriel was in his stroller, watching the leaves move in the wind. Helen was in Camilla's lap, happily drooling on her own fist. Michael slept placidly in another stroller. How was the call? Camilla asked. Difficult, but necessary. Do you regret it? Raphael knelt beside Gabriel's stroller and extended his finger. The baby grabbed it immediately, with that surprising strength that always moved. Him. Impossible to regret this. And now we start over. Together. Camilla smiled. You know what? I like the sound of that. Of what? Of together. It's been a while since I heard that word referring to us. Raphael stood up and kissed her, a long kiss full of promises. When they broke apart, the 3 babies were awake, looking at them as if approving what they saw. I think they liked the idea, Marianne said, laughing and crying at the same time. Of course they did, Camilla said. They know we're a family. The wedding was 3 months. Later, a small and intimate ceremony in the backyard of their new home. Only close family and a few friends were present. The 3 babies, now almost a year old, crawled around the lawn, supervised by guests who took turns making sure they didn't eat dirt or flowers. Raphael was nervous, but it was a good kind of nervous. The anticipation of someone about to fulfill a lifelong dream, not the fear of someone being pressured to do something they didn't want. Ready? Asked the vicar, a young, relaxed man who looked more like a family friend. Raphael looked at Camilla, who was beautiful in a simple but elegant dress, holding a bouquet of flowers from their own garden. More than ready. Then let's begin. The ceremony was different from the first time they married. There was no pomp, no hundreds of guests, no pressure to impress anyone. It was just 2 people who loved each other, promising to build a life together, watched by the children who were already the center of their lives. When it came time for the vows, Raphael had prepared a speech, but when he looked at Camilla, he decided to improvise. "Camilla, the first time we married, I thought I was promising to love you forever. But today I understand that love isn't a promise you make once. It's a choice you make every day." He took her hands. "So today I promise to choose you every day. On the good days, when everything is perfect, and on the difficult days, when things are complicated. I promise to be your companion, not just your husband. I promise to be present, not just physically, but emotionally. And I promise that our children will always know they are loved and that they have a stable family." Camilla was crying so much she could barely speak when it was her turn. "Raphael, you once said you were afraid of losing control. Today I can say, lose control with me. Let our life be messy, unpredictable, full of surprises, because that's what real life is like, and that's how I want to live with you." She took a deep breath. "I promise to forgive you when you make mistakes, because we all do. I promise to support you when you doubt yourself, because we all doubt. And I promise that we will build a family based on true love, not on perfect planning." When the vicar declared them husband and wife again, Gabriel was in Marianne's lap applauding. Helen was trying to eat the grass, and Michael was sleeping in his stroller, oblivious to all the celebration. "You may kiss the bride," the vicar said. The kiss was different from their first wedding, too. There was no rush, no feeling that they were performing for an audience. It was just two people who loved each other, sealing a promise they now knew they could keep. The party was simple. A barbecue in the backyard, background music, the children running or crawling everywhere. Raphael looked around and realized that this was exactly how he had always imagined happiness, even when he didn't know that was what he was looking for. "Happy?" Camilla asked, approaching him with Helen in her arms. "Happier than I imagined was possible. Even without the Millionaire company, without the penthouse apartment, without all that life you built?" Raphael looked at the small but cozy house, at the solar panels he had installed himself, at the garden where the children played, at the guests who truly cared about them. "Especially without all that. And you don't miss it? Not even a little bit?" Raphael thought about the question. In recent months, there were times when he caught himself remembering the adrenaline of big deals, the satisfaction of closing multi-million-pound contracts, the recognition that came with success. But whenever that happened, one of the babies would do something new, a smile, a word, a step, and he realized that he had traded professional success for something infinitely more valuable. "You know what the difference is?" he finally said. "Before I was successful, but I wasn't happy. Now I'm happy, and that's all that matters." "And the new company? Is it doing well?" Raphael smiled. RCS Solar. Raphael, Camilla, and Sinclair. He had insisted on including her surname, was growing slowly but consistently. It wasn't going to make him a millionaire again, but it was enough to support the family comfortably and still allowed him to get home before 6 to help with the children's bath time. "It's doing very well. I closed 3 contracts this week." "And you don't miss the adrenaline of big business?" "I have enough adrenaline at home. Yesterday, Gabriel managed to open the fridge door by himself. This morning, Helen learned to climb onto the sofa. And Michael is making a sound that could be Dada or could be water. But that moves me anyway." Camilla laughed. "You really have become a doting father." "Completely. And you've become an even more incredible mother than I imagined you could be. Even on days when I'm in my pajamas until 3 in the afternoon and barely manage to brush my teeth? Especially on those days." The conversation was interrupted by Gabriel, who had learned to walk a few weeks ago and was now approaching unsteadily, with his arms outstretched. towards his father. "Dada!" he said clearly, for the first time. Raphael picked him up, feeling his eyes sting. "Did you hear that? He said Dada!" "I heard it, and everyone here heard it too." Raphael looked around. The guests were smiling, some recording with their phones. Marianne was crying with emotion. Helen and Michael were looking at their brother as if he had done something impressive. "You know what's most incredible?" Raphael said, still holding Gabriel. "A year ago, I didn't even know they existed. And now I can't imagine a single day without them." "And with me?" Camilla asked, coming closer. "Can you imagine a day without me?" Raphael wrapped his free arm around her, pulling her close. "Not even an hour." When the party ended and the guests left, Raphael and Camilla were left alone in the backyard, cleaning up the remnants of the celebration while the three babies finally slept in their strollers. "You know what's strange?" Camilla said, gathering the disposable cups. "What?" 2 years ago, if someone told me I'd be here today, married to you again, with 3 children, living in a house in Brighton, I'd say that person was crazy. And now it feels like it's always been this way, as if everything else was just a detour on the way to getting here. Raphael stopped folding the chairs and looked at her. "Do you regret anything?" Camilla considered the question. "I don't regret separating from you the first time. It was necessary. I don't regret accepting Mark's help when I was desperate. It was what I had at the time. I don't even regret not insisting more to tell you about the pregnancy. Because if I had insisted, you might have stayed out of obligation and not out of love. And the rest? How everything happened. The rest was perfect. Even the difficult parts. Because they brought us here." Raphael approached her. "Camilla." "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me a second chance. For believing I could change. For letting me be the father of our children. For building this family with me." Camilla smiled, that smile that had made Raphael fall in love with her the first time they met. "Thank you. For showing up that day. For staying. For choosing us." They kissed in their own backyard, surrounded by the remnants of their wedding party and the soft sound of their 3 sleeping children's breathing. There was no romantic music, no special lights, nothing but the true love they had finally learned to build together. And Raphael knew with absolute certainty that this was the most perfect moment of his life, not because everything was planned or under control, but because he had finally learned that the best moments are those that happen spontaneously, surrounded by the people who truly matter. 6 months later, on a sunny autumn morning, Raphael was in the backyard installing a new swing when he heard Camilla call him from the kitchen. "Raphael, come here a second." He dropped the drill and went into the house. Camilla was standing in the kitchen holding something in her hands, with an expression he couldn't decipher. "What is it?" "Sit down." "Camilla, you're scaring me. What happened?" "Sit down, please." Raphael sat at the kitchen table, where there were still breakfast remnants and toys scattered by the 3 children, who now spoke a few words and walked around the house creating the most joyful chaos he had ever experienced. "Remember when you said you wanted more children?" Raphael felt his heart race. "I remember." "And I said 3 was enough for now?" "I remember that too." Camilla approached and placed what she was holding on the table. It was a pregnancy test. Positive. Raphael looked at the test, then at Camilla, then at the test again. "Seriously? Seriously? Another baby? Another baby?" Raphael stood up so quickly he almost knocked over the chair. "Camilla, another baby!" He picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, both laughing and crying at the same time. From the children's room came the sound of Gabriel shouting, "Dada, Mama!" He had learned to climb out of his cot and always woke his siblings when he wanted attention. "I think we need to tell them," Camilla said when Raphael put her down. "Will they understand?" "They have no idea. but they'll be happy when a little brother or sister arrives. Raphael kissed her, a long kiss full of joy. I love you. I love our crazy, noisy, perfect family. Even now that it's going to get even crazier and noisier, especially now. That night, after putting the children to bed, a task that now took 40 minutes and involved 3 stories, 5 songs, and negotiations worthy of the UN, Raphael and Camilla talked on the sofa about the future. 4 children, Raphael said, still trying to process the information. 4 children, Camilla repeated. Are you scared? Terrified. And you? Terrified, but also very happy. The house will be small. We'll manage. That's 4 university tuitions to pay. We'll manage. 4 weddings to pay for. If they want to get married and if they want us to pay for them. Raphael laughed. You've always been more practical than me, and you've always worried too much about the future. What matters is now. And now we're a family of 6. We are. And it's perfect. From the children's room came a cry. Probably Helen, who always woke up once a night to make sure her parents were still around. Raphael got up to go there. I'll go, Camilla said. No, you're pregnant. You need to rest. Raphael, I'm a few weeks pregnant, not an invalid. Still, from now on, you rest more. And who will take care of the other 3? Both of us. Together, as always. Camilla smiled. I like the sound of that. Of what? Together. Forever. Raphael kissed her on the forehead before going to soothe Helen. And as he walked down the hallway of the house that was now truly theirs, listening to the sounds of his family sleeping, he thought about how life had completely changed. 2 years earlier, he was days away from marrying a woman he didn't love, focused on a career that didn't fulfill him, living a life that looked perfect on paper but was empty inside. Now he was married to the love of his life, was the father of 3 incredible children, and would soon be a father to a 4th, lived in a simple but loving home, and ran a small company that gave him true satisfaction. And for the first time in his adult life, Raphael Carter didn't want to be anywhere else in the world. This was his life. This was his family. And it was absolutely perfect in its everyday, joyful imperfection. As he rocked Helen back to sleep, whispering the same lullaby Camilla sang, Raphael smiled, thinking that sometimes the best things in life come disguised as accidents, emergencies, or crises. Because if it weren't for a photo sent by mistake to his phone, he might have gone his entire life without knowing true happiness. And that was a possibility he couldn't even imagine.